Hey guys, welcome to the program. So in today's video, we are going to discuss about the variables and data types. So without wasting any time, let's get into our video. First of all, you would ask me what is a variable, right? Variable is a container to store the data values. Or simply, I can say that mm, it allocates the memory to the value which we will assign to it. For instance, let me declare a variable of type int my and I'm going to assign a value to it. This is called declaration of the variable, and it is of type int. And this myvar is a variable which stores the value 10. Basically, there are three types of variable: instance variable or class variable, local variable, and static variable. What is instance variable? Instance variable is a variable which is declared inside a class, not inside the method or any constructor. Let me declare an instance variable. So this is the instance variable. Coming to static variable. What is static variable? A static variable is a variable which is declared as static. Let me declare a static variable. I'm going to assign a value to it. So this is my static variable. So you would ask me what is the difference between these two, right? Let me tell you. I'm going to print the instance variable. It throws an error because I cannot access the instance variable without creating the instance of the class. Now let me access the static variable. Here you can see I can access the static variable. It doesn't throw an error, and it got executed. So the difference between these two is if I want to access the instance variable, I need to create the instance of the class. Whereas for the static variable, there is no need to create the instance of the class. Now let me create the instance of the class. Now I'm going to access the instance variable with the object I have created. I'm going to save it and I'm going to execute it. Here you can see it got executed. Coming to local variable is a variable which is declared inside a method or a constructor of the body. Let me declare a local variable. I'm going to create a method and I'm going to name it as my method, and I'm going to declare a variable. As you can see, it is showing an error because it is saying the local variable local may not have been initialized. Whenever you declare a local variable, you need to initialize it with a value because it doesn't take any default value. Let me initialize it with a value. Now the error disappears. Whereas for this static variable and the instance variable, the default value is 0. Let me delete this assignation and show to you. I'm going to save it. I'm going to run it. Here you can see the instance value default value is 0 and the static variable default value is 0. But for the local variable, you need to initialize it with a initial value. Now let me call this method using the object I have created. I'm going to execute it. Here you can see it got executed. This is all about the variables. Now we are going to discuss about the data types. Basically, data types are classified into two types: primitive data types and non-primitive data types. In primitive data types, there are 8 types. As you can see in the screen, there are 8 types: boolean, char, byte, short, int, long, float, and double. And non-primitive data types are strings, classes, interfaces, and arrays, etc. Boolean. Boolean stores two values, true and false, and its default value is false. Char stores the Unicode character. Byte, short, int, and long stores the integer values. And coming to float and double, they store the decimal values. Float stores the single decimal values, and double store double decimal values. Now let us see with an example. I'm going to declare a variable of type boolean, and I'm going to assign a value to it as true. I'm going to print it. As you can see, it got executed. What happens if I change it to 1, 2, 3, 4? I'm going to save it and I'm going to print it. It throws an error. Cannot convert from int to boolean. So we need to change it explicitly by typecasting. What is typecasting? We'll discuss in our next videos. But we cannot change the bool to int. It cannot be typecasted. It can only accept true and false values. Now we'll see char. It got executed. Now let me declare a variable of type byte. And I'm going to assign a value to it as 127. Let me print it. It got executed and 127 is printed. What happens if I change it to 128? Let us see. It says error exists in required projects, and we got a compilation error. It says cannot convert from int to byte because byte can only store from -128 to 127. If it got exceeded, it can't store those values. Either we need to change it to int or we need to explicitly typecast it to byte. First, we will typecast it to byte and see what happens. And I'm going to save it. I'm going to execute it. It got executed, and it shows -128 here. But I have assigned a positive value 128. Why this happens? Because it can store only from -128 to 127. Let me change it to int and see what happens. Yeah, you can see it got executed what I have assigned to it. So when the range exceeds, you need to go for short, and if the range exceeds for short, you need to go for int, and if the range exceeds for the int, you need to go for a long. Now let us see a long variable. You need to specify earlier, then only it understands that is a type of long variable. Now we'll see the float type. Float and double stores the decimal values. So I'm going to declare a float variable, and it shows error because by default the decimal values are double. We need to specify f here. Then only it understand it is a type of float value. So I am going to execute it. It got executed. And same goes with the double. Thanks for watching. If you like our content, please subscribe and share to your friends.